And good evening, and once again, welcome to another edition of the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly, and it's Monday night, so, well, I mean, let's just face it. It's time for new comics, bitches! Before we begin the proceedings here this evening, I'm going to go on a bit of a tirade, just to kind of sound off on some things that have really been bothering me. And, whoops, go back here. Now, I don't know if what I read tonight about this was the case or not, but I think what I saw was that Yannick Paquette is leaving Swamp Thing, that he will not be doing that anymore, to go to whatever other project he's going to go to. I don't know. But that's upsetting. More upsetting was the fact that, and this, it's okay that he can't. I would prefer that he didn't try to do double duty, but what really hurts to me is that Andres Sorrentino will no longer, after I don't know what issue, but he will no longer be artist for iVampire. Because he's going to assist Jeff Lemire on his run of Green Arrow. Now, of course, when Lemire takes that over, and Sorrentino's going to be doing the art, I'm damn sure going to be picking that book up. But I have no idea who they're planning on replacing either of these guys with. Now, if maybe someone like Paquette went over to iVampire, I would be really excited about that as well. But there's some weird editorial changes, just a lot of shifts that are going on at DC that are, quite frankly, really bothering me. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily... I'm not saying that it's bad that Sorrentino's going to a title that might get more exposure for him, despite the fact that a good part of the reason that iVampire is so great is because of his art, and not just the story that Fialkov is writing. But, you know, just DC's trends lately, within the last, week, have been very unsettling. And, of course, the most grievous sin of all is, I'm sure, as if you have a Twitter account, if you have a Facebook account, if you have a Tumblr account, you've probably read, seen, or if you even look at the internet on any comic book websites, you've seen that Gail Simone is off of Batgirl. She's essentially been informed via email, no less, that she's not going to be writing Batgirl anymore. I mean, whether she was fired, whether or not she's not leaving under her own steam, that's for sure. So it must be that she's not going to another book. So it really boggles the fucking mind as to what the hell is going on over there at DC. I mean, it's like, I don't know how far some of the big creative forces over at DC, namely Dan Didio, Jeff Johns, Jim Lee, I don't know what's going on with them over there and what they're thinking of, either removing good people from books. Shuffling them around is okay, but Gail Simone basically not doing anything more for DC is just a fucking tragedy. I don't know, there's nothing else to call it. I mean, unless Somehow they are able to, in the next wave of New 52s, they're able to resurrect Secret Six, or just have like a Secret Six-ish book, you know, I don't care, just have her write Catman or something like that. Like, give him his own book. You know, the Adventures of Catman and Bane, or King Shark, I don't care. Just, she, you know, but you know what? If she leaves and goes somewhere else, she goes to Dark Horse. If she goes back to Marvel. If she goes to Image, whatever, she's going to find work, is my point. But the fact that, you know, that Batgirl is it's a pretty high-selling book, that she's actually been doing a commendable job all the way through. It hasn't been great, but it has never been bad. It's never been bad. It's always been entertaining, but it just hasn't been more to what I expect, or what I've come to expect of Gail Simone, with the stuff that she did with Birds of Prey, and particularly the stuff that she did with Secret Six. Of course, you know, the whole, you know, leaving Megalopolis with Jim Calafiore, that's, you know, coming hopefully soon, because I really want to read that book. And yes, I was one of the $15 donators, so I get the whole schmear, and that's great. But I don't know, it's fucked up. That's all I really got to say about it. Anyway, so let's move on to some books. Like Mark, aka Ghost Critic, also had mentioned in his reviews, yes, there were no independents that came out this week that were kind of really worthy of attention, at least not to me. So we're going to hit it with the big two and see what they're up to, because they are up to quite a bit. And there's some really good stuff that came out this week. There's one really not good thing that came out this week. But again, you know, it was a good week. It's, everything except for that one book is above average. So let's move on. So first of all, we have we have a couple new #1s for Marvel this week, which is where we'll be starting. And the first one that we're going to talk about is Avengers #1 by Jonathan Hickman and Jerome Opeña. Now, I know that Opeña was the artist on Uncanny X-Force for a while. I know that his stuff is really good. And of course, I know that Jonathan Hickman, coming to Avengers and also coming to New Avengers, is not going to, you know, these books are not going to be Bendis books anymore. They're going to be very, you know, kind of science-y, you know, they're going to be stranger, they're going to be smarter, and I mean that more of an intellectual level rather than a storytelling level, which is not to say that by any stretch of the imagination that he's a bad storyteller. It's just that he's doing the, you know, he does like the more science-based stuff, and that's, you know, that's fine. Sometimes it gets a little out there, but anyway, on to Avengers #1. So we have what this whole issue is basically kind of, to me, was kind of a mystery wrapped within an enigma, you know, and surrounded by a riddle. And because basically what we have here is, now I don't know if, again, if this is a new villain or what, but you have, it starts very oddly with this, discussion about, like the character of Hyperion, and we have kind of like this desolation throughout different ages. You know, we see, some heroes, of like the whatever universe that the Squadron Supreme belongs to. We see, I think, some of them getting blown up. And then we see like all of the past and future Iron Men. We saw Iron Man 2020 in there, at least in one panel, where they're all seem to be dead. We have this guy Ex Nihilo, and his band of villainous beings, they are on Mars, and they are launching stuff at Earth. And basically what it's doing, these strange devices, these whatever, they are producing billions of years in evolution in just a few minutes of, plant life and so on. And he's also working to create a better human. And so what happens, we've got our core team of Avengers, basically the movie Avengers, if you will, blasting off to Mars to confront Ex Nihilo. So we've got Cap, we've got Hawkeye, we've got Black Widow, we've got Iron Man, we've got Thor, and we've got Bruce Banner, Hulk. And so there's some... Well, basically, it does not go well for them, because we have a big kind of throwdown with these, super-powered beings, and, there's a really cool Cap moment where, it's like, he's basically, everybody else has been basically taken out, and, basically Cap is like, as long as I'm still standing, we're not defeated, but, of course, his not standing ends pretty quickly, and so... he is sent back to Earth alone while the others are held hostage. Basically, even there's this one character called Abyss that kind of sucks the Hulk in and basically turns him against Thor. So you've got, kind of mutually assured destruction there. Basically, this leaves, with Cap being sent back to Earth, he kind of, takes a couple days to recuperate, and then puts out the word. And the word is to all Avengers to assemble. And so there's a lot of characters in this kind of final splash page to recognize. Of course, you have Spidey, you have Wolverine, because they can't be left out of any Avengers teams now, and some other recognizable heroes, Captain Marvel, of course. But then there were some where it was like, wait a second, who are these people? It's like one kind of looks like Hyperion, and some of the other guys I don't really recognize, and I'm thinking, well, what the hell's going on here? Who are these people? I'm anxious to learn who exactly these people are and more about them if I don't know them. I mean, well, obviously I don't know them if I can't recognize them, but, it's going to be very interesting to see where Hickman takes this, and, Peña's art is terrific. It's really, really well done. And Hickman's script, again, is very well-paced, it's very smart, it's thoughtful, there's a lot of really interesting creative ideas going on here. It definitely, it's bringing, it's taking the Avengers and giving them their kind of galactic-level threats, which is stuff that we always like for the Avengers. I mean, because it can't always, be, kind of the Masters of Evil and everything like that, but, that doesn't hurt, but, what can you say? It's a, for an opening book, this was very Jonathan Hickman. It was very smart. It was very well done. I can't say that I was exuberantly enjoying it, because it does sort of, Hickman's stuff does sort of fly over the head every once in a while. So, but, you can never, like I said, you can never accuse Hickman of dumbing anything down, because he is a really smart guy. So, 4.5 out of 5 for the first issue of Avengers, of Marvel Now's Avengers. Which brings us to our another new number 1, which is Thunderbolts number 1. Now, this is Daniel Way and Steve Dillon, which I am not really terribly familiar with Daniel Way's work, because he's always kind of been writing these books that have always to me have kind of been, I've not been terribly interested in. And he's and now, you know, with Steve Dillon, basically what we're seeing here, this whole issue is essentially dedicated to the assembly of a new Thunderbolts team, and it's taking basically heroes that are kind of, you know, it's basically a group of anti-heroes. It's not like before with the Thunderbolts where it's, you know, you have, you know, it's kind of like, you know, reformed criminals or criminals looking to reform or anything like that, or you know, mystery heroes that end up being villains, which is absolutely, to me that's, I mean, the very first issue of Thunderbolts way back when was one of the great reveals of all time. It was a great comic book moment. But you know, that we have basically what we have is that Thunderbolt Ross, General Thunderbolt Ross, is assembling a new Thunderbolts team. But it's not, like I said, it's not made up of criminals. It's made, well, that's debatable, but it is made up of primarily, you know, it is made up of essentially of kind of Marvel's group of anti-heroes. You know, because you have, you know, at the very beginning, you have him, you have Ross with the Punisher. And this is, again, this is not the current Greg Rucka Punisher. This is, again, more of a throwback to the kind of Vietnam Frank Castle. So it's interesting to have kind of these two kind of opposing Punishers in the same universe, as it were. So, I mean, of course, one of them is going away shortly, sadly. But you know, so I think that leaves room again for this more, you know, this older Punisher to kind of step back in. And so we you know, we start with the Punisher. We then move on to Venom. We then you know, Venom, not so much of an anti-hero because he is, you know, obviously he's a sanctioned government agent, but what we're seeing here, what we see him doing here, what we see everybody that he assembles doing here is wet work. You know, he's in, you know, Venom's in Somalia, he's wasting a bunch of bad guys, and, you know, it's, and, you know, so he's looking for, you know, another recruit. Then we bounce over to France, in which he is looking to recruit Deadpool, who is fighting a group of murderous criminal mimes. And of course, I mean, that has Steve Dillon written all over it, man. I mean, because that's Steve Dillon's kind of wicked sense of humor that obviously he's gotten from, you know, all of his work with Garth Ennis over the years. And just, you know, putting, you know, Deadpool in a naturally absurd situation like, you know, wasting killer mimes is pretty awesome. And then we get to Elektra, who's just busy, you know, assassinating a couple people in the Middle East, I think. And there's another mystery character in here with purple hair. They're not on the cover, so I can only kind of assume that maybe it's Psylocke, but it can't be. It doesn't, you know, because, you know, she's more of an X-Force, you know, type. So anyway, but I don't know who that that other female character is, but of course, you know, Thunderbolt Ross is no slouch in the kind of anti-hero department, being Red Hulk. Spoiler alert, sorry if you didn't already know that he was Red Hulk. But yeah, so and it's interesting that the most of the issue revolves around the conversation that he has with Frank Castle, and basically he's looking for, you know, that they've had, you know, like that, you know, the FBI and, you know, just all of these, you know, abbreviated groups, ATF, whatever, they have kind of like almost an algorithm that they've programmed to track, predict, and catalog the Punisher's movements, his kind of his patterns, and specifically trying to get a hold of who he's going after. But of course, this is all it's all been kind of subverted by Ross, because he wants the Punisher to help lead this team of Thunderbolts, because he's the kind of guy he knows that can get things done. And he knows what these, what criminals, even and super criminals, he knows this is a guy that will not stop until he's dead. So I mean, this is something, it's like the very core of the Punisher's being, and this is, of course, what Ross is kind of appealing to here. And ultimately, he's put Frank in a pretty impossible situation to say no to. But as long as the mission keeps going for Frank, then I guess it's it's worth it. Now, Dylan does some nice work, and Daniel Way, does like some nice kind of introductory moments to these characters. This is I am frankly, if you read this issue, I'm really shocked that this was not a Max title, because this is one of the bloodiest books that I've seen in a while. This book is just dripping with blood. There's a lot of red business going on here. So it's just, like I said, it was really shocking that this is not a Max title. But whatever. If they can get away with it, I guess they can get away with it with just having the parental advisory on it, or calling it a T+. Or it's funny, because I haven't even looked at a rating on a book in like a year or something like that, so I don't care. But it was just shocking to see how much violence they put into this issue. I'm intrigued. I wasn't particularly taken with how this just kind of the pacing of this book, because it very much felt like, okay, well, I'm here, and 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 we're going to, this is the assembly of the team. And I get that that's the idea here, but to me, it was like, it didn't leave a lot of room for things like character or story. It just seemed to be kind of a conversation. This felt like it could have been like a second issue, rather than a first issue. To give time to explore, okay, well, here's what these guys are doing, and, giving some insight and giving them their own unique voice. And I think that's one of the things that Way is really going to have a hard time with coming up with. Because, anytime you're writing a team book, you have to find the characters' voices, and you have to be able to reproduce them. And, we see some evidence of that, but, again, this just wasn't enough to... I don't know if this is going to be enough to suck me in. I'm sure that I'll try the next issue, see what it's like, see if it gets better, but this was still pretty good. This was a 3.5 out of 5 for me for Thunderbolts #1. So, it's definitely above. It's definitely slightly above par, but it's it hasn't. Nothing really grabbed me. Okay, so moving along. So we've got All New X-Men #3, and I was shocked actually to find out that All New X-Men #1 was the best-selling title of November. That was really that just was a big surprise to me. I know that people love Bendis, I know that people love the X-Men, but this was just kind of a head-scratcher to me, because it's like, with Secret Avengers or not Secret Avengers, but Uncanny Avengers, and, a lot of the other stuff that was coming out, it beat out Batman #14, for best-selling books. So it was just, I was glad, because it's a good series, but I was just shocked to find that out. Anyway. So what we have here in #3 is, it's interesting the way that Bendis is kind of developing this tale. that and that it's coming out so fast. I mean, it's what, 3 books in 3 weeks. It's 3 issues in 3 weeks, if memory serves. So, but basically, we have at the beginning here, we have Cyclops, Magic, and Magneto are looking to actually make, again, kind of a personal, make some kind of statement about their revolution by actually making their base of operations in the old Weapon X facility. So they're actually going to take the place where, you know, mutants were experimented on and, you know, fucked with and everything like that, and make it, you know, their own, and make it their home. So that to me was, again, more speaking to kind of like the, you know, kind of a propaganda type of methodology that they're looking to essentially, you know, make themselves into more than just, you know, a group of mutants that tries to keep mutants and humans safe. Because this is no longer a team that has any interest in keeping humanity safe. They're only looking out for the mutants. They're not. Nobody's talking harmony. It's a revolution now, as they say in the book. And they basically here they look to break out. They look to break Emma out, and they do, but by the skin of their teeth, basically because of everything. Because this all, again, kind of tying back into the Phoenix Force, and there's this whole conversation, this very long conversation about as Emma, when she is freed by the two of them, we see their problems that their powers, all of them, Psyche, Emma, Magneto, all of their problems are fucking going haywire. You know, I mean, you know, Cyclops can't control his optic blasts. Magneto's power is kind of suffering at one point or another. Emma's telepathy is gone. She can still become Diamond Hard, and I don't know if she has any TK abilities, but wow. But it all has to do with the Phoenix Force, and that's kind of Cyclops' excuse for everything, is that, well, it wasn't me, it was the Phoenix Force. You know, everything that happened while I was a member of the, you know, while I was one of the Phoenix Five, and ultimately when I became Dark Phoenix, that was all kind of the poisoning influence of the Phoenix. So this, to me, that seems really disingenuous, because, and this was one of the things that I was glad that appeared in the book, because Magneto actually calls him out on that bullshit, is because there is some part of him, as Magneto is telling Scott, that wanted these things to happen, that thought that these things were good. Even the killing of Charles Xavier was something that, you know, he was not totally against. You know, kind of almost an out with the old, in with the new, almost kind of a, you know, an Oedipal complex, if you will. And that's kind of the way that I have kind of come to see it, because I just don't buy that Scott, you know, that there was nothing really of him in the Phoenix Five, as far as the way that they characterized him during, you know, the whole Avengers versus X-Men bullshit, and even prior to that, you know, with him leading the Extinction Team and everything like that. And it's just how much of a hard-ass he's become. I mean, he can be badass, but he can also still be cool. And again, that's, but, you know, we have, you know, Magic appearing. Her powers actually seem to have improved due to the Phoenix Force's influence. But, you know, we have, of course, another New Mutant that appears on the scene, and you know, Cyclops and Magneto and everybody go to find this this new mutant who can kind of become other people. I don't know whether it's just by tactile contact or just by looking at them, whatever. But you know, so they show up and they talk about, you know, welcome to the revolution, and then you know, there's this off-panel, bubble saying, whoever said this was a revolution. And of course, we have this nice, big splash page where we have our 5 original and standing off against, Emma and Cyclops and Magneto and Magic. So I'm dying to know what happens next. Again, I mean, it's so, just the idea of this book alone is worth the price of admission. To see, I mean, because this is what we're really waiting for, is to see Scott Summers come face to face with the more idealistic version of himself, and to see if he can indeed be talked down, and that we can get an actual, that we can get Cyclops back to where he used to be. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most. This book, the one problem that I've had with it is that it's so kind of rapid fire, and it just seems like it was over like that. It just felt really quick. Stuart Immonen's art, again, is just wonderful. I love his stuff, always have, and this is just, it's another really, really solid issue from these two. Again, I just had a problem with the pacing. It felt, like I said, a little too rushed. So this was a 4 out of 5 for All New X-Men number 3. But again, I'm really enjoying this book, and I'm enjoying where it goes. So, and I'm really looking forward to where it goes. So, Ultimate Comics Ultimates number 18.1. So this is kind of the finale of the trilogy of .1 issues of the Ultimate Universe, where basically the Ultimates are taking down this one threat of this guy who basically constructs his own big, like, mecha, and he's making his way towards this nuclear facility, this power plant that he actually, when they find out more about him, they see that he actually saved, and he's looking to probably cause a meltdown. But what, the really interesting thing about this is that the reason that they all kind of converge on him is that they have, that he has some kind of quark technology that is very not good for him to be having. And this particular kind of quote-unquote villain's story cuts very close to home for Thor, because we have, all of these, the kind of trinity of the Ultimates here, Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, they all seem to be kind of doing their own thing. Obviously, Cap is, busy being president, but he's also busy saving lives at the same time, realizing they just basically averted a civil war. But, at what cost? It's the cost of course, all these lives, and of course, Thor had to kill his own son to stop this, and and Tony, of course, is still having conversations with his sentient brain tumor. So there's some questions that Cap has once they do actually kind of talk this guy down. Thankfully, they don't just beat on him until he, gives in, because, like I said, this story cuts very close to home for Thor, because it's all about, him while he was off, saving the power plant. His family was killed by what we can only assume were Hydra, whatever you want to call them, insurgents. But, yeah, so we do have definitely Hydra spilling over in here, and we have this, this technology that seems to be kind of getting out amongst people that shouldn't have this kind of technology. And Cap, really, he's having a conversation with Carol Danvers, who is, of course, his chief of staff now, or I don't know if it was her or Monica Chang that he's having the conversation. It might have been Monica, but they're talking about basically a new team of Ultimates, because he's worried about Tony, he's worried about Thor, And just, with him being president, he can't always be doing this stuff. So it is, some of the stuff does, it works well. Dale Eaglesham steps in doing the art duties here, and for Luke Ross, and he does a really nice job. And we have also the unveiling of this universe's Iron Patriot, because that's basically what Tony has come up with next. Is that because he is now part of the president's cabinet, or at least I don't know if he was ever actually made an official cabinet member, but that's just part of who he feels that he needs to be right now. Is this really kind of symbolic force. And so, with this new team of Ultimates, it's like, well, who's going to come next? And what's going to come out of this Iron Patriot idea? Is this just another symbol that the country can end up rallying around while Cap is busy doing, presidential stuff? All in all, it was a very dense issue, which, again, I didn't really have that much of a problem with, but it felt a little too talky at some points. And Sam Humphries, he's a good writer. I mean, he's done some nice stuff with the Ultimates here. It's not the same as what was going on under Hickman, but it is it's a good title. It's a good book. I mean, this was a 4 out of 5. I'm sorry. This was a 3.5 out of 5 to me, because we're still missing people. That's what this book seems to be lacking. It seems to be maybe this whole new kind of Ultimates that they're thinking about will bring back some of those people. We'll bring in some, because we've seen, ultimate versions of, a lot of different characters so far. But, who will this include? Is, Miles Morales finally going to become, an actual full-fledged Ultimate? Or is he just going to kind of flounder around in his own book? Not that I necessarily have a problem with him not being one, but I think that he should definitely at least be present, if that's the idea, if he is supposed to be one. And, that there's been no Hulk, essentially, since the first story arc, really. There's been no resurgence of Bruce Banner. Nobody seems to give a shit what's happened to him. And so, that feels a little bit, like they forgot about him or something. But it happens. So, but all in all, pretty good storytelling. Like I said, 3.5 out of 5 for Ultimates 18.1. So this brings us to Punisher Warzone number 2. Now here we have, we begin, interestingly enough, with Rachel Cole Alves in prison. And she is visited by this person who represents basically a group that is against the death penalty, and which Cole Alves seems to be facing because of her apparent, because of her, essentially she did kill Detective Bolt, so, it was illegal. If it was just her killing a bunch of bad guys, I'm sure that was, that would be more lenient. But of course, her killing a cop definitely doesn't help her case. And of course, this anti-death penalty advocate is really curious about where the whereabouts of Frank Castle are. And of course, she's saying, I'm not gonna, even if I knew, I would never help you find him. Captain Castle, is a good man, and, he's just, and he's kind of needed out there. And of course, what we find out in just, a page is that this anti-death penalty advocate is indeed Black Widow in disguise. And so it is now her turn to go after Frank Castle. And what we have here is that we find out what Frank has been doing. He's around the world now. He's on the other side of the planet, and he's been kind of killing his way through all these different slavers and drug runners and, you know, just some really, really awful people. And, you know, and Widow is able to successfully track him, I should say, pretty much the whole way through until we finally settle into the Congo. Which is not a nice place to be, I hear. And, of course, here's the confrontation, is that, you know, she, you know, the bad guys kind of lead her, you know, the team that she's kind of gone out with turns out to be a bunch of assholes and bad guys and looking to kill her. And, you know, of course, but she's the Black Widow. She, you know, smacks him around, hog-ties him. But, of course, you know, some shots are fired, and, you know, she knows that it's Castle. And, of course, she looks and she sees, you know, all the guys that she tied up are dead. So it wasn't shooting at her, it was, you know, shooting at these guys. So, you know, the whole thing about, you know, wanting to bring him to justice, but also to help, you know, his friend, you know, Rachel, and then he just appears and basically says, "I don't have friends." And then that's when the Mano e Fi Malo begins. You know, again, there's, you know, the argument, he's stronger, she's faster. You know, and that no is not the answer, you know, that she will take. But what we see here is a different side of what Frank does. Is that there are, you know, he ends up killing a lot of bad people, but in turn, that does help to save a lot of good people. And that's something that we don't see a lot of. We don't see kind of the ramifications of what his, you know, kind of cleansing of the criminal fraternity that he does. We don't see the end result. We just basically follow him on his path, and that's it. We don't see the people that he saved. You know, the countless lives that have been saved by Frank Castle of the countless criminals that he's put in the fucking ground. So, and of course, you know, this is where Black Widow has to break off, you know, her pursuit, because, you know, there is, you know, a village of people in the Congo that, you know, some of the children are near starvation, and she just can't abandon them. So it's time to put a new player on the board, a new hunter, and someone that is decidedly thunderous for the next issue. So, yes, great issue. Again, with the exception of the art. The art is just not very good, and it hurts the book. It does. I hate it when, I mean, because it's not bad art. It's not like Rob Liefeld art. It's it's decent, but it's just not. You know, we get a real sense of movement and fluidity, and I mean, but everything seems really kind of almost scribbled at the same time. So the art is a detriment to this title. Now, my understanding is that the reason that Marco Checchetto couldn't do this is, unfortunately, apparently that he was having some family issues that he was dealing with, you know, some personal issues that he had to get through, which is why he's only doing the covers. And that's, you know, obviously, if there's any reason to not be, you know, working on doing full illustration for a book, you know, dealing with family crisis is obviously one of the most important. So you have my blessing, Marco. Go your way in peace, and hopefully everything, whatever's going on, is okay now. But like I said, you know, Rucka does such a great job of writing this title. Like it's bad. It just kind of hurts when the art kind of drags it down. So this was a 4.5 out of 5. Again, that kind of half point taken off for the art, because the art just not very good. I guess, but we have been spoiled. Let's put it that way. We've been spoiled by how good Cicchetto's art was on this book. So Daredevil End of Days, number 3. Now, this was a book that, to me, it's interesting. It's not great. It's certainly not bad. But it is, really kind of, Bendis and Mack and Sienkiewicz and Jansen, really kind of, putting the spotlight on Ben Urich, and then also putting the spotlight on the many supporting characters of the Daredevil universe. That obviously this takes place in a completely parallel continuity to our own. This is kind of Bendis's kind of Dark Knight Returns for Daredevil, because we have characters in this issue that pop up that are dead. One of these, he actually killed himself. So, what we have here is ultimately we see the future of, particularly in this issue, of some of the paramours of, well, one that I didn't think was a paramour until now, of Matt Murdock's life. And so we see kind of, as we left off with issue number 2, which I didn't review officially for this site, for this vlog/podcast. So we see basically the soccer mom, literally, the soccer mom Elektra. Always kind of strange to see. And when he doesn't get the answers, we still, of course, we're looking into this mysterious word, Mapone, or Mapone, or however it's supposed to be pronounced. And why this was Daredevil's last word. Why is this his rosebud? And she's very not forthcoming about it, because she wants Ben to really ever forget that she ever existed, that he ever knew her, anything, because she is very much wanting to remain out of, any kind of scrutiny. So, which I can understand, especially now that she has, kind of this different, hello. Sorry, kitty alert. Now that we have this, she has this kind of very suburbanite identity. But we also are treated to seeing the apparently cured version of Typhoid Mary in this issue. She is now an actress, and she's working on, I don't know whether it's a TV show or a film. It's not really quite sure what that is. But he has a conversation with her. We're getting retreated to more of, kind of Sienkiewicz's very... Hello? Well, this is unusual for you, little girl. Everybody, this is Chloe. Say hi, Chloe. Hi. No. Sorry. Anyway. So, we have... you're in my way, little girl. We have Mary, who is obviously still wrestling with her alter ego, her other half, the typhoid part to her Mary, and we get a glimpse of her family and her children. Both of her children are kind of ginger-haired. And of course, it's revealed that they, when he asks, whose children are these, and she says, I don't know, but they were hers, meaning Typhoid Mary's. And so she doesn't rightly know exactly who the father is, but he might be able to make a guess. and again, rebuffed by her as well, because again, she doesn't want any of her past to get dredged up again. But then finally we meet the teacher, Maya Lopez, aka Echo. And they have a conversation. This is much more congenial than the previous two in this book, but also again we see how in it, again, because it was David Mack who created Echo, that, or at least co-created him. I'm not sure exactly who is credited with the creation of Echo, but it seems like, I think it was probably both Bendis and Mack, even though it was Mack that wrote the issue that introduced her character. And we see, some more lovely art by David Mack in this issue, where we have where we see kind of the hookup with both Matt and Maya. So, and then he gets a call that Bullseye is on the loose, and right above him, as we see in the final page, running along the rooftops on, like I said, right above where Ben is, of course, is this mysterious Daredevil, whoever's wearing this Daredevil suit. If it is indeed Matt Murdock, because he has been apparently risen from the dead before, if memory serves. I think he was, part of the Hand, but Stone and Stick and everything like that, helped to, kind of help him, kind of get out of their spell. So I think that at one point or another he was actually dead. Help me if I'm wrong. Please feel free to correct me. And that's how we wrap that up. So, if anything, this issue has, again, some terrific art by all involved, by Mack, by Jansen, by Sienkiewicz, and just really wow, did Mack get around? He was, I mean, it's interesting to see Bendis kind of, at least in this issue, really focusing on some of the women in his life, and just how much kind of how much ass he's gotten over the years. I mean, because he never even had a romantic relationship with Echo until, again, this parallel, universe story of Matt Murdock. So, this was a 4 out of 5. I mean, it's a good issue. It's really well written. Of course, it's very dense, as all of the other two issues of this have been so far. But there's nothing really kind of... I'm invested in the mystery, and of course I'm invested in the character of Ben Urich because we haven't seen him in so long. But more, other than that, I'm perfectly happy. If this book didn't exist, I would not really mind. Because I'm perfectly happy with with just having Wade's Daredevil out there. So that's fine with me. So moving along to DC. We're just gonna start off. I'm gonna start off with Phantom Stranger #3, because this was a piece of shit. It really was. It was, for a character, this Terrence 13, which nobody gives a shit about. I mean, who the fuck cares? I mean, it's like, at least with the first issue and part of the second issue, or the Zero issue, and the first issue, and part of the second issue, we had characters that we know and we really like, and that we actually care about. We have Jim Corrigan, we have Raven, and then in the second issue, we have Pandora and Terrence 13. So it was like we start to see this kind of sliding off the rails here. But more than that, we have just this kind of badness in this issue, with revolving around Terrence 13, the Haunted Highwaymen. This was all, again, like I said in the last part that we did when we talked about this book, all has to do with stuff that was taking place in All-Star Western, in the current run, But it's like, I don't give a shit, man. I mean, it's like, this is a character that nobody cares about, really. Maybe there's like, 50 people in the world that actually give a shit about this character. Whereas there are thousands, there are legions of fans that care about the Spectre. There are legions of fans that care about Raven. So to have, but he's going to be appearing in Justice League Dark now, and Justice League Dark will be making an appearance here in this title as well. It just seems, it was very, again, Ghost Critic really hit it right on the nose. I mean, Dan Didio has no sense of really doing anything subtle. This is like, Stan Lee shit. And while in the 60s that was fine, but this is a modern book, and you do kind of have to, once the whole kind of appearance of comic books has changed, and the evolution of storytelling has been so clearly defined over the last couple decades, you can't be doing kind of, Silver Agey kind of, writing anymore. You can do it, you can have some Silver Age fun, but you can't write Silver Age comics anymore. It just doesn't fit, doesn't work. So I mean, there's really no style to this. There's, the book is horribly paced. The art looks bad. It's lame story, lame art, and it just is a bad book. This is a 1.5 out of 5, if that. This was just a terrible read. Although I understand that Didio is getting a co-writer. I saw that headline somewhere. I can't remember if it was on the CBR or Bleeding Cool or whatever. I just saw a glimpse of that, but I didn't actually click on the link. So I hope whenever we find out who that is, that it's somebody pretty decent. Because it can't continue like this for much longer without it getting dropped like a hot fucking brick. So moving along, before Watchmen, the Minutemen, number 5. So this is I believe this is the penultimate issue here, if my understanding about this book is correct. And of course, we have here is, opening with, in kind of the more, in the later years, where Hollis is, he's just about to get Under the Hood published. Of course, he's at Sally's place, they're kind of relaxing, and we've got, little Laurel Jane, she's like, like 10 or something like that in this particular issue. And, we see how she is, she's very happy with having her for, a child, and we see how happy Hollis is with seeing her, that he loves her almost like she were her own, she were his own. But then this goes back to, then we cut back to the past, and basically we have kind of the final hurrah, the last mission of the Minutemen. Because we still have, Mothman, we still have Captain Metropolis, but we do see that the dollar bill dies in this very sort of absurd way. He gets his cape actually caught in a fucking revolving door, and it's, whatever happened kills him. So I mean, that was just like, that's got to be a shitty way to buy it. But that is, again, that's very much in kind of keeping with, how Darwin Cook has been approaching these characters, and of course what Alan Moore kind of originally envisioned for them, is that the deconstruction of the superhero myth is that, yeah, some of these assholes are going to end up dead. Because they're stupid enough to put on capes and costumes and go out and fight crime. But, so we have, Captain Metropolis, like I said, Captain Metropolis, Mothman, and Night Owl and Hooded Justice kind of teaming up with these two comic book characters that have been brought to vivid life, where they learn about this attack that is planned on the by Japanese fifth columnists to basically, use kind of an atomic device to, in New York City. So they race to go stop it, and it turned, the place that they're actually planning on using it is the Statue of Liberty, and we have these two mysterious characters who seem to be very much like Captain America and Bucky, kind of leading the charge against these against the Japs, so yeah, that's the comic book's phrasing, not mine. So we see them kind of doing their thing, and racing to the top of Lady Liberty, and we see one of them gets killed. The elder of these two, the Captain America type, leaving this Bucky type to go stop the this atomic reaction, and everybody contributes, but of course this poor kid gets a face full of radiation when Night Owl gets up there to the top to help this kid out and see kind of the aftermath of what's gone on here. Is that he's having trouble breathing. He pulls off this face mask and he sees that he's Japanese, and that that the other man that was killed was his father, who's also of course Japanese, and it was kind of the Japanese bitterness about the internment that went on during the war, of course, which is not a high water point in American history. And of course we have to, we see through Night Owl's eyes this kid kind of gradually dying from this radiation, this massive radiation poisoning that he's gotten. And basically says, this was our finest hour and we could never tell a soul about it. So it was the only time they felt they really got to do something important and good. And then, we go kind of throughout the years and we see them splitting up and kind of going their separate ways. We see them go before the House of Un-American Activities to, basically say, look, we're not communists. At least all of them except for Hooded Justice, who, of course, is, persona non grata. We see the wedding day of Sally and what's his face, Arnold, I think, and she's getting some in the bathroom at her own wedding day to someone who appears to be the comedian. Then we go back to the Silhouette's old tapes, because there's a child that's gone missing. This is basically not, he hasn't hung up his tights yet, Night Owl, but he goes to search for this missing kid, and the real mystery is that is Hooded Justice maybe the person that's behind this? Because there's some weird clues that seem to be dropped in here, because he almost does beat, Hooded Justice almost beats Night Owl to death. Yeah, it was some really nice storytelling, some really nice visual storytelling going on in this book by Darwin Cooke, because Darwin Cooke does tell really good stories visually, and also does happen to tell some really good stories from a plot and a writing standpoint. Just this issue, it's certainly not bad. But again, there's this big question mark at the end, this cliffhanger that we're left with, where is, who exactly is Hooded Justice? I think that's the mystery that this book has kind of been building towards, because it's never, even in Watchmen itself, it was never ever succinctly put who exactly Hooded Justice was. There was a lot of speculation as to his identity. Even Silhouette has some speculation to his identity, that he's apparently German, but we don't know. Nobody knows who he is, or we obviously know his sexual proclivities thanks to issue number 2, which I think was still an awful, awful issue. But we don't know if this somehow involves children as well. So a little uncertain about this book, but again, some terrific art by Darwin Cook does go a long way. So I give it about a 4 out of 5 for Before Watchmen Minutemen number 5. Animal Man number 14 and Swamp Thing number 14, because you literally can't review one without the other. These issues do some really fascinating parallel storytelling, as with Animal Man, which we're going to start off with. We have basically the face-off against Gorilla Grodd and Mala and the Gorilla Army, but the day could seem to be lost. But here comes Frankenstein and his patchwork army to help save the day. And of course, when they do, they are asked, to go with, to stop, to storm the castle of Anton Arcane, who may or may not have Maxine with him, which, Buddy still feels that she's out there. But there's this, apparently this one hero in Metropolis that was not able to be turned or undone by by Arcane and the Rot and the Unmen and so on and so forth. So while they're traveling to Metropolis to find out who exactly this is that Arcane has in this prison, this dungeon, if you will, we cut back to, again, the past, or the present, because Rot World is still the future, technically. And we have Maxine and Socks and William Arcane. And we see that Maxine is on her way, despite all of Socks' objections, that she does make a judgment call in regards to William Arcane, and of course it's the wrong one. So, and then when they finally, in the future, in Rot World, when they do get to this mystery, this mystery hero, it's not who they think it is, because they thought, well, Metropolis, so probably Superman, but no. So that was a really nice reveal as to who this was, and just this book, is terrific. I mean, Lemire writes, his storytelling style is very distinct. He has a really great grasp on the voices of all the characters that he's working with, because a lot of them he's writing, but I mean, characters like, Beast Boy and Steel are definitely not in his repertoire, but he does get their voices very well done. Purple Orchid and, of course, Frankenstein, Constantine, all really well done. It's a terrific, terrific issue. Steve Pugh, his art seems to get better and better with each issue, or just maybe I'm getting more used to it. And seeing how well it does fit, even though I do miss Travel Foreman still a little bit, I'm now perfectly happy with Steve Pugh's work on this book. So 4.5 out of 5, absolutely, for Animal Man number 14. Swamp Thing number 14, and here's where we get to kind of our picks of the week, in which there are a few. And so we have here, again, parallel story of, Swamp Thing in the Rot making his way towards Gotham City, and of course is attacked by William Arcane and his pet Starro. But Swamp Thing, his powers, while waning, are still pretty fucking considerable. But things are just not going well. They're just definitely not going Swamp Thing's and Deadman's way. So Deadman ultimately really has to take, the final one for the team. And, because he knows that the only way to really stop William Arcane is by entering into William Arcane. But he knows that if he goes into someone who is controlled by the Rot, that there's no coming back for that. He can't just pop right back out again. So we lose Deadman, and then we cut to the present, in which Abby is being, of course, held by Uncle Anton, and he reveals that he is making clones of Abby. That's part of his secret evil plan. And this, we get more insight into these dreams that Abby kind of keeps flashing back to. We don't get a lot of that from Swampy this time around. We do get that from Abby, because Abby's story is definitely the one that, well, of the two that I'm invested in, this is the one that to me is more emotional, because it has, ramifications that are, the consequences could be really scary. Marco Rudy really looks to scare the hell out of us with everything that we see going on here. And again, just his panel work is extraordinary. It's really breathtaking in this issue particularly. It's not as good as someone like Yannick Paquette, but it's definitely up there. And so what we have here really is, she eventually, so pissed off and really taps into, her own Rot-based power and uses it to at least deflect, Anton for a while. But of course, all of the villagers in this, wherever the hell this is, are under his control. But she does take some time to smash all of these little abbeys that he's trying to create. But of course, Abby out of the frying pan and into the fire pretty much every time in this book. And then, again, some nice misdirection here, as we had in Animal Man, we do also have here, because we're going to Gotham City, right? So who else could it be but Batman? Well, it's not Batman. And it's someone who has undergone a rather substantial life change that ends up kind of bailing Swampy out. So again, that reveal was just an even bigger wow than what we had in Animal Man. And again, this is a more, because Snyder, he's a better storyteller than Lemire, I think. And obviously, anybody who reads pretty much anything he's done can attest to that. But this was just a smart package, definitely very well done. He keeps the pace up. He keeps, he keeps these great cliffhangers, keep on coming. And so, I mean, it just works better. Not much, but it works better than Animal Man. And it has pretty much throughout its entire run. So this was a 5 out of 5 for Swamp Thing number 14. So it brings us to our picks of the week, which, like I said, that was one of them. And the next three I'm going to talk about are the others. First one I'm going to talk about is Deadpool number 3, because it's the easiest one to get out of the way. Because basically we have here Doctor Strange getting in on the action here, and coming along for the ride as Deadpool and his Shield agent backup, and I can never remember her name. They continue to go up against the the dead presidents, and it's just Tony Moore, first of all, is really killing it on the art. He's doing terrific work here. But more than anything, this book is just fucking hilarious to read. I mean, it's just it is so tremendously funny, and it is getting to a point where it's like, yeah, I'm kind of digging Deadpool. I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. I mean, like I said, it does help to have really funny and really, really demented people like Jerry Duggan and Brian Posehn writing this book. So, I mean, they're obviously huge fans. There's some really, really obscure nods, to Benjamin Franklin sleeping with Clea way back when in the 70s. But like I said, it's just, this is pure, like, fanboy love for this character, but also, I mean, just wickedly funny, just totally, I mean, there isn't a panel that doesn't make you laugh in one way or another. And, because there's these great lines of dialogue, there's these great moments. I mean, of course, George Washington keeping getting punched in the wooden teeth and everything like that. And then, of course, you have Gerald Ford, who is easily the funniest part of this book, because what really happened, I mean, basically it's his demise that really just, because the whole kind of famous, Ford, trip, kind of always kind of seeming like kind of a bumbling moron, and that's how he meets his death in this particular issue. And it's just, I mean, because to me, my brain goes back to the old SNL skits from the first, from like the first year or so, when Chevy Chase would go on, and he would come out and be, Gerald Ford. Of course, he looks nothing like him and talks nothing like him, but, he just keeps doing, he's tripping and falling all over the place. He answers the phone with a glass of water, and, just, I mean, it's just insane. I mean, this book is just, it's so awesomely funny that you just have to have fun with it. And that's really all this book, I shouldn't say not all it has to offer, because there's some interesting storytelling along the way, but more than anything, what it offers is a really, really fun and hilariously funny time. So really, 5 out of 5 for Deadpool #3. Really excited to be reading a book that's this funny, because it does remind me of the old Justice League International stuff with with DeMatteis and McGuire and Keith Giffen. I mean, just all the fun shit that they did on that was just, because it kept you laughing all the way through pretty much. So this then brings me to, again, the most controversial title that is out there right now. You could have you could have Superman butt fucking Lex Luthor, and it wouldn't be as controversial as this title right now. And of course, that is Amazing Spider-Man #699. Is that we have, basically in this issue, we get the flip side of 698, which is where we see now we have, we have Peter Parker and his personality in Doc Ock's body. And we have Humberto Ramos on art here, so it looks really good. But we have, him trying to think as, basically trying to piece together how exactly this all happened. And we do see when and how it happened. all the different ways that Doc Ock could have mapped, you know, Peter Parker's brain waves and all, you know, his memories and so on and so forth. And we have the moment, of course, with the golden Octobot, you know, right in the back of Spidey's neck. And this is how this whole thing has started. So, I mean, it did happen very recently. So we don't need to go around questioning, well, how long has this been going on? You know, thankfully, because that would have really fucked up, I think, too many issues. We'd have to go back and really look for clues. How can we tell that this might have been Doc Ock? Well, we don't need those clues anymore, because we find out in this issue, you know, Slott takes us to the moment where we have, you know, that he was able to do all of this. And of course, it was right at the end of the last arc that this really happened, with the, you know, the Hobgoblins and the quote-unquote Danger Zone arc. But, you know, what is more fascinating about this issue than anything else is the way that you know, Spidey can, you know, he figures out how to, you know, use Ock's own intelligence, his own plans, to see what he can do about getting himself out, because he's obviously has all these horrible images in his head of what he could what Ock could possibly be doing as Spider-Man. And we are treated to some memories that you know, of, you know, Ock in his formative years, some, you know, getting, you know, beaten up by Spider-Man, and of course the panel. And you know what I'm talking about. When I talk about the panel in this book, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. And it is just one of those things you can never unsee. And it's like, oh my god, this is so wrong. But it is just, it doesn't quite throw off the balance of the book that much. But it is a moment that obviously all of us could have done without. But I think it was nice to know that, yes, we are kind of still following this, you know, the whole idea of, yes, Doc Ock and, you know, and May Parker were going to get married at one point. So that, you know, that basically all of continuity has not been flushed down the toilet. Because they're, you know, obviously, in the previous issue, we did have him remarking on the dear sweet woman and everything like that. So, but what is even more fascinating than that is that we see how Spidey begins to actually start to kind of behave like Doc Ock. That he's feeding into kind of the criminal element of Doc Ock's brain, and he's feeling himself being corrupted by it, that there's something very wrong with the way that he's doing these things, because ultimately he calls upon kind of this new iteration of, well, not the Sinister Six, because there's 3 people that come to break him out of the raft, and it's, you know, Scorpion, Hydra Man, and the Trapster, or aka Paste Pot Pete. Which, of course, it's nice to see Paste Pot Pete again. Of course, like I said, doesn't call himself that anymore, but, you know, it does, again, harken back to way long ago when Spidey first met Paste Pot Pete. I don't know if he was, when he started out, if he was a member, if his first appearance was in the Frightful Four, or if it was in the issue of Spider-Man. But just, you know, obviously it's such a laugh-out-loud name, but you know, here he is, you know, kind of saving his ass, but at what cost? See, this is the whole thing, and that's what's so fascinating and so well done about this issue. And we have this other great moment in which we have the Lizard's confession, which is that, you know, he has the brain of Curt Connors, and he realizes everything that he's done is wrong, and, you know, that he can think as Connors again. And of course, as he's being broken out, you know, they're asking, you know, we need 2 more, you know, should we get out, you know, Morbius? He's like, no, you know, leave everybody behind. You know, should we get out Alistair Smythe? No, fuck him. Leave them all behind. But the one person he does want to help get out is Curt Connors. But Kurt is not having any of that because he knows this is where he deserves to be. So they split and start to form their unholy alliance, and of course the objective is to get Spider-Man dead or alive. What? No, not dead. Very much alive. And so that was really, like I said, that's where this book got me, is that it was, it was really well done up until that point, but then once we started seeing how the criminal side of Doc Ock is starting to influence the decision-making of Peter Parker, is the flip side going on the side of Doc Ock being in Spider-Man? Maybe. But I'm sure that we'll find out more in the next 2 issues, because we do have 699.1 coming up, and then, of course, we have 700. Exciting. I mean, that is one of the... I mean, you can't deny that this is a huge deal. No matter what your thoughts on this may be, you cannot deny that this is tremendously important. It doesn't hurt at all, but this is all really well done comic book storytelling. I mean, Ramos is great on art. The writing by Slott is full of, the kind of verve that I've been missing from him for so long. And so, I mean, this is shaping up to be obviously a huge deal, and the suspense is killing me. But fortunately, we're not going to have to wait long, because 699.1 comes out this week, and I believe that 700 comes out the following week. Which we're going to be treated to the ultra supersized finale of Amazing Spider-Man, which I'm sure will resume in probably about 1.5 to 2 years' time. So that leaves, so again, 5 out of 5 to Amazing Spider-Man 699. So this now brings us to the pick of the week, and since it's this week, and the comics that came out, and I haven't talked about it yet, I'm pretty sure you know what that is, and that is Hawkeye number 5. This book has continually been crushing the shit out of just about anything else that comes down the pipe. It's such a fantastic book. Matt Fraction, Javier Pulido, again, sitting in for David Aja, who is coming back next issue. Thank you. Not to say, again, that Pulido's art is bad or that it's out of place. In fact, it works extremely well here, because we have kind of this more, we need kind of a more dynamic storytelling, visual storytelling, than perhaps Aja is not quite as well suited to, as, kind of more this more kind of playful art that we see from Pulido here. Because basically what we have is we see that with the last issue where it left off is that, yes, Kate Bishop did successfully masquerade as Madame Mask. And again, if you actually saw that issue and what I talked about there about, all of the different things that she had to do in order to look like Madame Mask, you can actually see that she's got like the fake, like the fake breasts and everything like that, and all these different wardrobe items that she used. But that does not last for very long, and of course we have, everything going sideways for Clint as well, until we have, where he's being attacked by ninjas, until he thrusts himself out of a window tied to a chair. And, this is all about this tape, this viewing of this tape, which of course Kate does get to view, in which she sees Hawkeye killing this very kind of Bin Laden-like terrorist by 2 arrows right between the eyes, or right in the eyes, I should say. But what we have here, we have Clint throwing himself out the window, and who comes to his rescue but none other than Maria Hill. And of course, we have this, and then we have this great moment in which Kate is captured by Madame Mask and her thugs, and has this really awesome monologue about smoking, and how it took her so long to quit smoking, and and how she's actually going to go out and buy a pack of cigarettes just so she can use Kate's face as an ashtray. And I mean by putting out cigarettes on her face, not just tapping the ash onto her face. And so we have this, this breakneck speed in which they have to escape. We have, again, Clint with kind of the triumphant, kind of saving of Kate. But of course, they have to get the tape. So where they're running away from from all the people trying to kill them, Hydra and the ninjas and everybody, they have to race back in to get the tape again, and we find the true meaning behind the tape, and that no, in fact, Hawkeye didn't kill anybody. So this whole kind of reveal about this tape and what it meant was that Hawkeye was actually doing a good thing, but unfortunately, this was all a part of one big kind of mole hunt, so they could lock down whoever might have released whoever would actually get their hands on this tape of this killing taking place. And of course, the tape itself is destroyed because, well, it's just, we see how Hawkeye was called upon to help out in a very specific way. And, that there are other decoy tapes that have been made but are not in circulation. This was the one that did, unfortunately, get out. So it's just, it's smart. It's incredibly smart. The dialogue is so engaging. The characters are so well defined, and they're incredibly engaging themselves. It's really cool. It's really fun, and it's just really fun. This is a great, great book. And if you're not reading Hawkeye, do yourself a favor, or at least, when the first trade comes out, go out and get it, because this is an excellent book. This is definitely one of, I'm sure is going to be one of my year-end tops, because this has just been fantastic from the first issue on. So, excellent work to Matt Fraction. Major props to him, because this is, since Immortal Iron Fist, this has been the first book of his that I've loved. Loved. I would make love to it if I could. Well, this is now coming to a close. We're done discussing comic books for now. So, the end of this week's New Comics, bitches! So, again, thank you for watching. Thanks for sticking around so long. We're at an hour 32. I think I do that every time. Again, thank you for watching. If you're listening to this on iTunes, of course, thank you for listening. Apparently, I'm big in Germany, thanks to Just One Trans Fan, who's been converting these to iTunes podcast format. And yes, it's really weird. He emailed me with some stats that apparently I've gotten a decent amount, like 50 or something, downloads in Germany. So that, to me, I've gone global, boys and girls. So again, if you haven't checked out the iTunes stuff, well, there's really no need to if you're watching me on YouTube, but if you're not, please feel free to check it out on iTunes. Just go to your podcast app on your iPhone, your iPad, your whatever else is out there, your iPod Touch, and again, just look up the Shadow Gallery, and there you will find me. Today was my 4th wedding anniversary, which was nice to sit down, have a day with the wife, and just kind of chill, get away from the busyness of work. So this one's for her. I love you, Catwoman. And we hope to have Cat's Comics Corner again at some point in the not too distant future. I know I keep teasing this, but I swear to God, we're going to get this done at one point or another. I'm going to get her a book, and we're going to get her reading and see what she thinks about it. So that's it for this week's New Comics, bitches. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, please subscribe. You'll know that this is the length that I do all of my videos. So unless, you know, economics or whatever, you know, cease to provide me with these opportunities to read these comics. So even then, I'm going to do what I can to read as many issues as I can. So again, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm James Donnelly. Now, saying goodnight from the Shadow Gallery and reminding you, as always, to stay in the shadows.